I just have a quick follow-up question about some of the tools you mentioned. I am curious because, I'm in the industry too, and you mentioned some interesting tools like Harness. I know that is the new cutting edge CICD tool, I think, where I work, they're trying to adopt it as well. And I'm also curious about Azure. So I was hoping if you could tell us a little bit more about Harness, new CICD practices out in the industry, and also Azure, such as how tough was it to transfer your AWS skills to Azure, and how different is it exactly? I know you talked about it a little bit. Just did you face any challenges regarding those changes to these new tools that are coming up or that you are using?
Yeah, of course, obviously. Obviously, I faced a lot of challenges when I started working on Azure because as Shivlu mentioned, right? The people they hired you, the company hired you to finish their job, not to learn. They don't want to teach you. Yeah, obviously there will be a period, certain period they will give you some time. Okay, we are going to Azure from AWS. So you have 1 month. We have 1 month to plan. So these resources we will use. So uh, just learn something. Go ahead and take a boot camp or go ahead take a course. And lot of companies they have their own they have some what is called uh, people. They have some people they can show you like new technologies, how these things work. They have some documentation because when the company started adopting new technologies, obviously there should be some professionals. There should be some professionals because if something happened, who gonna fix this, right? So there should be some documentation, and also the company have some deal with different learning portal. Like our company they have contract with Udemy. So in Udemy you can go and you can buy a course, you can choose a course and learn something. So yeah, it was difficult, as I said before, because in Azure they they manage those things differently. Like if I say, like, first when I started learning Azure, there is a term called resource groups. So when we are deploying resources like EC2 instance in AWS or S3 bucket or some databases RDS, right? We don't have any specific resource group. So resource group has something like all those resources you are deploying, all those resources metadata are saved on those resource group. So in one point, it's a single pane of glass. When you go to the resource group, all of the resources you are deploying inside this resource group is grouping together. So you can just find those resources easily. And obviously the Azure networking is little bit complex. Uh, Unlike AWS, they are also are using some of the other things, like they have private endpoint, private service, and like their databases. Like when you create their databases, when you create their AKS cluster, those things are work differently in from compared to AWS, right? So it was very challenging for mostly networking parts for me, because those resource groups and other things, how Azure is running those things is not going to be very different than other cloud. But when you starting doing some networking as a DevOps engineer, right, you have to do some networking. It's not complex level of networking based on your company, I would say, but there would be some networking. If I give you some example, in our company, a lot of things we cannot do, even though we needed those things. Let's say some companies we see we are deploying VPC, right? The DevOps engineer deploying VPC, their own VPC for their application. They're creating subnets and they're doing routing. But in our company, we cannot even create VPC. If we wanted to create VPC, we have to raise that request. Hey, we need this VPC. We need one VPC and we need one subscription. So cloud company will give you a virtual network, like in Azure term is virtual network, and there will be some limited IP addresses, because in our company it's a monster. It's a very giant company, and they don't want you create some of the networking part, because it will disrupt some of their existing application, right? So it's a 40,000 people company, like 20,000 people are in tech. So you can think about how big it is. So as I mentioned, like you can do some certain things, you cannot do some certain things, but you have to collaborate with other teams. Probably your networking team, probably your cybersecurity team. So there is some kind of standard in every company, right? So you have to follow the standard. You have to ask the right question, not the wrong question. You have to ask the question in the right participant, not the wrong participant. Like not everything you can ask your manager, because your manager, he or she will have a lot of workloads. Maybe he will handling other projects as well, right? So if with every struggle, like every single thing, every time you stuck on something, instead of asking your manager, go ahead the Confluence pages and look into it, how they are having over there documented, right? How they are doing things, and uh, sometimes use ChatGPT. ChatGPT also give you some good answers. It's not every time is accurate, but sometimes it's accurate. Sometimes it is helping you. So let's say I'm writing a Terraform script, right? So instead of writing line by line, I just ask ChatGPT, hey ChatGPT, can you create me some script for PostgreSQL flexible server? So it will create you PostgreSQL flexible server, but you have to work on this. But it will save you a lot of times. Do some Googling. Lot of time we have some error. We have to troubleshoot. We are not going to our manager directly. Like we are going to Google. We are Googling. We are finding some similar solution or some similar problems people always solve on, right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel. So if we are not successful, then the next thing is, okay, now we did something, we did troubleshoot, we spend one day, and obviously you need to talk with your team members, your coworkers. Maybe you don't know how to do it, maybe he knows, maybe she knows, maybe they already did those things. So you just need to ask, and if they don't have anything, then you have to go to your manager. So if your manager doesn't know, okay, he or she will redirect to you with the new person or the appropriate person who can solve this problem. So yeah, in Azure is little bit difficult, but I think you need to focus. So when I was learning Azure, I also have two certification on Azure. When you are learning new things, you have to be focused, so you don't need to go here and there. If you have one I would say boot camp or one courses, online courses, go finish those, this one, and then look for other things and look for other related documents or other related boot camps or other related courses online. But I would say when you are doing something, when you're learning something, you have to be focused. Okay, this is the thing I'm doing, I need to finish it first, then I will go to YouTube, I will go to maybe LinkedIn Learning, maybe Udemy, maybe Coursera. So there is a lot of things available right now. And as you asked about harness is very new technologies, very efficient, very effective. Doesn't matter you have microservice, doesn't matter you have monolithic application, it can do a lot of things. It can manage your infrastructure, it can manage your application deployment, it can do some chaos engineering, it can manage your like source control, it can look into source control. And is not something like you have to code there. As we see when we are creating Jenkins pipeline or GitLab CI/CD pipeline, right? We have to run this YAML for GitLab CI/CD, or for Jenkins, we have to learn the pipeline in Groovy, right? But in harness, you can do it YAML if you are good at YAML, but there is a UI. So you click, you select those options, and that will create your pipeline. It's very easy to use harness, but you need to understand the basics first. So if you need to learn about harness has their own YouTube channel. and they have everything over there. So you can learn it. And there is a lot of advanced things you can do with harness. Let me give you example. In our system, what we do, we let's say deploy 5 servers, 5 virtual machine. So after we deploy virtual machine, how are we gonna deploy? Obviously, we have to use Terraform Enterprise. In Terraform Enterprise, we have Terraform modules. We have to call the modules. After we create the modules, and there is something like maybe you can do or you cannot do. In our company, the module they are creating, they are using their specific providers, because if the cyber policy, so for naming convention we cannot use random provider, we have to use unprovider, which is Pfizer, like they are developed it, Pfizer developed providers, and we have a lot of custom providers. Like for DNS entries, we have our own providers to use. So after we create the infrastructure, we get some output from the infrastructure, and we convert it into a Ansible inventory file. Because in order to deploy in application in those servers, we have to use Ansible, right? Because if we don't use Ansible, it's gonna take a lot of time. Like each servers is taking 2 hours, more than 2 hours to deployment the application. Doesn't matter you are doing it manually or you are doing it automation. It's taking almost similar time. But when you are using automation, with one automation script, you can deploy your application in thousands of servers, right? So you are saving time. So harness is very powerful. We use some bash script. You need to know Linux actually very well to write some bash script or advanced bash scripts. So harness is very powerful. It can do a lot of things, like so we converted our Terraform output into a Ansible inventory, and we checked out those Ansible inventory in a GitLab repo, and from there Ansible also calling the GitLab repo, and they getting the inventory file, and they run those Ansible commands against those inventory file. So in a short, harness is very good. I would suggest, if your company use harness, obviously you have to learn harness. If they don't, you need to like learn little by little, because a lot of company I see nowadays, they're adopting harness, like big giant companies, they are adopting harness because it's very useful tools, very useful. Yep.
Sure.
Thank
So
you so
yeah, I had a follow-up question, but I want to add just a little bit. So number one, he mentioned very details. Thank you. So the reason company is in harness, I can go back, give the reference, because they're in a situation, current tools stack, the current deployment, the cloud deployment stack is not supporting their application stack. So now they have to make something custom for them because they need to be part of the automation. So that's where the harness come to the picture. Harness come to the picture means harness is being used in automotive industry, in the plane industry, daily basis. Okay, so before you go, you have to make everything custom, because those things people do not make it, and if people make it, it doesn't work basically. So harness come to the picture when you need to do something custom, means something is not working in a typical manner. And also, like he's mentioned, when you have a strong fundamental and essential skills and expertise on the regular tools, harness is like the extension for you to learn easily. But if you start jumping after today's session, I need to learn the harness. Well, then
No.
don't do this, because
No.
people is not going to deny your interview. You don't know the harness, please.
Yeah.
You know, 99.99 time, people is not going to deny your interview because you don't know the harness. People is going to deny you the interview. You don't know the basic. You are weak in the basic. You don't know how to work with the team. You don't know how to start something and end something. You are not collaborative person, and you get scared up immediately. You don't have any debugging skills. You don't have any reading documentation skill. Really, we identify those during the interview. Okay, even though you have no skills on our tools, we don't care. We really don't care. All we check our checklist. If you have all of this, we'll hire you.
Yep, exactly.
Give you the time. So make sure you guys know this. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add something. Shivri was saying it. You don't need to jump today to learn harness, right? Harness don't save your lives. Yeah, it's life saving for certain companies, not for all companies. 95% companies still use Jenkins. They still use GitLab. Still use Azure DevOps, also doing same thing. Like a different thing. Azure DevOps is they can Azure DevOps also can deploy. Azure DevOps also can do the work for what is called Jira. So there is GitHub Action, there is a drone CI, there is a lot of CI, there is a Bamboo, there's a lot of tools different company are using. So you don't need to jump into harness. Okay, if I don't learn harness, I cannot get a job. It's not like that. If you learn Jenkins, if you learn GitLab CI, I think it's enough to go to the interview.
Thank you. Yeah, Inshira, do you want to say anything?
No, I'm just fully agreeing. First of all, that was a very good conversation we all had. Thanks for very educational and informative answers, Mr. Chaudhary. Give us a full walkthrough, and thank you for making note of that. The reason why I asked about harness and new tools is it's important to understand that you will always need the basics first, but be prepared that every now and then your company will start adopting new tools, will start transitioning to new tools. The only thing that will save you in those moments are your basics. You don't
Yes.
have to know everything. And that's all what they care about, because change is such a constant in companies. They care about your basics, and you have to know how to approach trends when your company is transitioning from tools and technologies. And, Mr. Shibu sir already answered that. Is about knowing what the approach should be, how to ask for the documentations, how to leverage your basics and skills to transition accordingly. So that was just a heads up for those in the future to be prepared for the changes and the constant evolution in tools and technologies you use.
Yeah. I also want to ask one thing. So when we say, okay, you don't need to know all the CI/CD tools, right? You need to know the basic tests. Exactly, that's 100% true. So for example, when you are deploying a application in Kubernetes cluster, right? You need to write the Kubernetes manifest into YAML format, right? So if you know a good YAML, if you have a good knowledge of YAML, you can also use that YAML into your GitLab. You can use that YAML knowledge into harness. You can use this YAML knowledge into some other things. So there is a lot of things. So once you learn something, you learn it. I would say learn it like very good way and learn it everything possible, and then you can use this knowledge anywhere.
That is correct, because the fundamentally all the tools, all the companies, they're using the basic things to build their application. No, thank you. Good conversation.